It was another chilly morning, the kind where the air feels heavy and every breath seems to make your nose sting. A little girl, no older than 8, zipped up her jacket and clutched her worn backpack as she stepped onto the sidewalk. She had walked this route every school day for the last 2 years, yet today she moved slower than usual. Her small hands twisted the straps of her backpack nervously, and her eyes darted up and down the street as if she expected something she didn't want to see. Her father, standing a few steps behind her, noticed her hesitation immediately. He had learned over the months to read even the smallest changes in her behavior. She usually skipped lightly or waved to neighbors along the way, but today her shoulders were slumped, her head bowed slightly. He wanted to ask her what was wrong, but he also knew mornings were tricky. Pressing too hard could make her clam up completely. Still, as he walked beside her, he asked gently, "Everything okay this morning?" She didn't answer right away. Her eyes stayed fixed on the pavement, and she kicked at a small stone. Then, in a soft voice almost swallowed by the wind, she said, "The bus driver did it again." Her father felt a cold spike of worry run through him. He knelt down to her level and looked directly into her eyes. "What do you mean? What happened?" Her little lips trembled as she tried to form the words. He yelled at me. And at the other kids, too. He made us sit so close and then didn't watch where he was driving. I got scared." Her father's chest tightened. Fear for his daughter's safety hit him harder than anything else. He had trusted that the school and the bus system were safe, that the people in charge were responsible adults who looked after children like hers. But now her words painted a different picture, and the thought of her being scared every morning made his stomach twist. He took her hand gently and squeezed it. "I'm so sorry that happened," he said. "You shouldn't have to feel scared on your way to school. Not ever." She looked up at him, her eyes filled with a mix of shame and relief, as if admitting it made her guilty but also lighter. "I tried to tell you before, but I didn't want you to be angry. Or maybe I thought it was just me." Her father shook his head firmly. "It's not just you. If this is happening, it needs to stop. I promise I'm going to make sure it stops." They continued walking to the bus stop, and the girl stayed close, holding onto her father's hand as tightly as she could. Other children ran past them, laughing and shouting to friends, boarding the buses in groups while she moved like she was carrying a heavy secret. At the bus stop, the driver waved at the kids, a big grin on his face, but something in the little girl's eyes made her father pause. She didn't wave back. Instead, she hung back and stayed close to him, glancing at the bus with hesitation. Her father's heart sank. This was not how mornings were supposed to be. "Do you want to tell me exactly what happened today?" he asked quietly. She nodded, her small hands twisting the straps of her backpack again. "He yelled at Tommy for spilling his juice yesterday, and then he told me to sit still, but it was really crowded and I almost fell when he turned the corner fast. I said something and he shouted at me too. He made me feel small." Her father's face grew serious. He had expected some complaints, maybe small frustrations, but this was different. It wasn't just about rules or discipline. It was about a child feeling unsafe. The thought that she had spent every morning for weeks, maybe months, feeling anxious and scared, made him furious inside. But he forced himself to stay calm. Panic would not help her. He needed to think, to act, and to make sure she felt supported. When the bus arrived, he walked her closer but stayed slightly back, letting her board without being seen by the driver. She hesitated for a moment, then climbed the steps slowly. Her father watched until she found her seat and then turned to leave. But even as he walked back down the sidewalk, he couldn't shake the worry. At home, he sat at the kitchen table, hands gripping the edge tightly, replaying her words over and over. The bus driver did it again. The phrase rang in his mind. Again? How many times had this happened before? Why hadn't he known? Why hadn't the school acted sooner? He decided he needed to approach this carefully. He needed to understand the full story before confronting anyone, but he also knew he couldn't wait. Every day she felt fear was too many. He pulled out a notebook and began writing down what she had said, what he remembered her mentioning in the past, and what he needed to find out. Later that afternoon, he asked her again about the bus ride, sitting across from her at the small kitchen table.
"Can you tell me exactly what makes you scared?"
"I want to understand so we can fix it." She fiddled with a pencil, then whispered, "It's how he drives fast and doesn't look. And when we say something, he yells. And sometimes, he calls us names." Her father's jaw tightened. Names? That was unacceptable. not for any child. He made a note of every detail, every fear, every little thing she could remember. He wanted to see the pattern to know exactly how often this had happened. Then he made a plan. First, he would speak to her teacher discreetly, asking if other children had similar experiences. Second, he would quietly talk to other parents without alarming anyone, to see if this was an isolated incident or part of a bigger problem. And third, he would meet with the school administration, armed with facts and his daughter's account, to ensure something was done immediately. Even as he planned, he made sure to reassure his daughter. "You did the right thing by telling me. I know it's scary, but I'm proud of you. You're brave." Her small face brightened a little, a tiny smile breaking through her worry. "Really?" she asked. "Really," he said, reaching over to squeeze her hand. "We're going to fix this together." That evening, as they walked together after dinner, they passed the bus stop. She paused and looked at the empty street, imagining what the morning ride would be like without fear. Her father stayed close, silently promising her that the next morning would be different. He remembered the mornings before all this, when she had bounded off to the bus with a laugh, chatting with friends and waving at neighbors. He wanted that back, not just for her, but for every child who depended on someone else for safety and care. And he knew that as long as he acted, he could make a difference. That night, after putting her to bed, he sat by the window, notebook in hand, writing down every thought, every worry, and every step he planned to take. The street outside was quiet, but in his mind there was no silence. He replayed the mornings, the small details, the fear in her eyes. He thought about other children who might not have a father noticing the signs, who might suffer in silence, and he made a promise to himself. He would not rest until the bus ride was safe. He would not let fear go unnoticed. Every parent had a duty to protect their child, and he would take his seriously. By the time the first star appeared in the night sky, he had a rough plan for the next day. First he would listen, then he would gather information, and finally he would act. But for now he simply sat there, thinking about his daughter's brave little heart and how a few words, soft and frightened, had sparked a determination stronger than any challenge he had faced. Tomorrow, he would begin, and he would not let the fear win. The next morning, the little girl was quieter than usual as she got ready for school. Her backpack was neatly packed, her shoes tied tightly, but there was a weight in her small movements that her father noticed immediately. He stayed close, offering quiet words of encouragement, knowing that today the fear she carried would not be ignored. "Do you want me to walk you to the bus?" he asked gently. She nodded, her fingers clutching his hand as they walked together. There were no other children at the stop yet, only the empty pavement and the soft hum of morning traffic. Her father could feel the tension in her little hand. He knew she was still scared, still remembering yesterday and the mornings before, and he wanted to ease that fear in any way he could. When the bus arrived, she hesitated at the top of the steps. Her father crouched down to her level. "Remember, I will talk to your teacher in the school today. We are going to make this better. You just ride safely, okay?" She nodded again, her eyes flicking toward him before she climbed in. Her father watched as she found her usual seat but stayed near the aisle this time, her small body braced, ready for anything. He waited until the bus pulled away before turning back toward home, already planning the steps he would take next. The first thing he did was call her teacher. He introduced himself and explained that he wanted to discuss some concerns about the bus ride, emphasizing that it was about safety and the emotional well-being of the children. The teacher listened carefully, noting that she had observed the little girl's anxiety but had not witnessed any serious incidents herself. She promised to pay closer attention and share anything she noticed. Next, he reached out to a few parents whose children rode the same bus. He did not want to alarm anyone, so he phrased his questions carefully, asking if they had noticed anything unusual or concerning during the rides. To his surprise and relief, several parents spoke quietly about similar experiences. Children coming home upset, complaining about rough driving, or feeling unsafe because the driver yelled. It became clear that this was not an isolated problem. The little girl was not imagining things. There was a pattern, a series of small but serious incidents, and it had been happening for some time. Her father's determination hardened. He could not let this continue, not for her, not for any of the children on that bus. He decided that before he met with the school administration, He needed a complete understanding of the situation. He asked his daughter to tell him everything she could remember, every detail, no matter how small. Sitting together in the living room after school, she spoke cautiously at first, but as he listened patiently, her words flowed more freely. She makes it sound worse than just driving fast, he thought to himself, noting each concern. It's not just about speed. It's about fear, about control, about how the children feel every single day. She described times when the bus driver ignored the children calling out for help, times when he turned corners too quickly, making them slide in their seats, and times when he spoke harshly, making them feel small. She even mentioned moments when the other kids on the bus were scared, but too intimidated to speak up. Her father wrote it all down, careful to capture every emotion, every detail, every fear. Once he had a clear picture, he reached out to a few more parents, asking discreetly if their children had similar experiences. One mother confirmed that her son had been scared several times but hadn't told her because he didn't want to get in trouble. Another parent mentioned that her daughter had been nervous about speaking up after witnessing the driver shout at another child. Slowly, the father pieced together a fuller picture. This was not a single incident or misunderstanding. It was a pattern of behavior that affected many children. Armed with this information, he felt more confident but also more urgent. He knew he needed to act carefully but decisively. He made notes about which incidents were repeated, which children had experienced fear, and what needed to be addressed. He planned to present this information to the school in a clear, calm way, without anger or accusations, but with enough weight to make them listen. That evening, he sat down with his daughter again, this time to reassure her. "You did the right thing by telling me everything," he said. "I know it's scary, but your words are important. You are helping not just yourself, but the other kids too." Her small eyes widened with a mix of surprise and pride. "Really?" she asked, her voice soft but steady. "Really," he said. "You are very brave. And tomorrow we are going to make sure things start changing." He could see a tiny spark of hope in her eyes, and that gave him strength. Even though the fear would not disappear overnight, knowing that she believed him and that he was working to protect her made a difference. The next morning, the father went to the school early. He requested a private meeting with the principal, explaining briefly that he had concerns about the safety and well-being of the children on the bus. The principal, surprised but attentive, agreed to meet with him in a quiet office. During the meeting, the father calmly laid out the information he had collected. He described his daughter's experiences, shared the accounts from other parents, and highlighted specific patterns of behavior that created fear and discomfort for the children. He spoke steadily without letting anger take over, but with the determination that came from knowing children's safety was at stake. The principal listened carefully, occasionally taking notes and asked questions to clarify certain points. The father explained that while he wanted to work with the school to find a solution, he could not ignore the repeated incidents. He emphasized that immediate action was necessary to prevent further fear and possible harm. The principal agreed to take his concerns seriously and promised to investigate immediately. They discussed possible interim measures such as monitoring the bus, assigning a substitute driver temporarily, and speaking with the children to gather more feedback. The father felt a small relief knowing that the school was taking steps, but he also knew he could not stop paying attention. He needed to make sure that promises turned into real changes. After the meeting, he returned home, feeling a mix of exhaustion and determination. He found his daughter sitting at the kitchen table drawing quietly. She looked up as he walked in and smiled faintly. "They are going to help," he said softly, kneeling beside her. "I spoke to the principal today. We are going to make sure the bus ride is safe for you and all the other children." Her face lit up a little, and she hugged his arm tightly. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for telling me," he said, hugging her back. "You were very brave." Never forget that. Over the next few days, he continued to check in with other parents, gathering updates and ensuring that the situation on the bus was improving. Some parents were relieved to have someone advocating for their children, while others were grateful that their own concerns had been validated. Slowly, the father began to see a change. The children seemed a little less anxious, and the bus rides were being watched more carefully. He also spent time with his daughter, helping her rebuild her confidence. They practiced small ways to assert herself safely, like speaking clearly if something felt wrong or raising her hand to ask for help. He encouraged her to share her feelings openly, reinforcing that her voice mattered and that she had the right to feel safe every day. One afternoon, as they walked home from school together, the little girl looked up at him with a shy smile. "I think the bus ride might be better tomorrow," she said. He smiled back, squeezing her hand gently. "I think it will be. And if it's not, we will fix it. Together." The father knew that this was only the beginning. There would be challenges ahead, and it might take time to fully resolve the situation. But he also knew that by listening, gathering information and acting carefully, he was making a real difference, not just for his daughter, but for every child who relied on that bus for their safety and peace of mind. That night, after putting his daughter to bed, he reviewed his notes again. He felt a quiet pride in her bravery and in his own persistence, but he also reminded himself that vigilance was key. Children's safety was too important to leave to chance. He made a plan for the next day, which included following up with the school and continuing to observe any changes in the children's experiences. As he looked out the window, the street was quiet, bathed in the soft glow of the moon, but in his mind the work was far from over. He felt a strong sense of responsibility, a determination that grew stronger with every detail he uncovered and every fear he addressed. And somewhere in the stillness of the night, he felt a spark of hope. A hope that tomorrow the little girl could ride the bus without fear, that tomorrow her small voice would continue to be heard, that tomorrow she and all the other children would be safe. The following morning, the father woke early, even before the alarm clock had gone off. He made a cup of coffee and sat quietly at the kitchen table, reviewing his notes. Every detail the little girl had shared, every observation from other parents, and every moment of fear she had experienced weighed heavily on his mind. Today, he thought, today he would take more decisive action. When his daughter appeared in the kitchen, rubbing her eyes and yawning, he gave her a warm smile. "Good morning, sweetheart," he said softly. "Ready for school?" She nodded, her small hands fumbling with her backpack straps. She had grown used to seeing the determination in her father's eyes, the way he refused to ignore her fears. It gave her courage, a small shield against the nervous flutter in her stomach. Walking to the bus stop together, he noticed her glancing at the street with a mixture of hope and anxiety. "It's going to be okay," he whispered. "I'm going to make sure you're safe today." When the bus arrived, she climbed aboard and he watched until she was seated. Today, he didn't just stand back. He took out his phone and quietly started recording, intending to capture any behavior that seemed unsafe or alarming. He knew that evidence would be important if he needed to present a strong case. He stayed for a few minutes until the bus pulled away, then walked home slowly, thinking through the next steps. Once home, he called the school again, this time requesting a formal meeting with both the principal and the head of transportation. He explained calmly that he had collected multiple reports from children and parents about repeated incidents on the bus. He emphasized that this was a serious safety concern and that immediate action was necessary. By mid-morning, he arrived at the school for the meeting. He carried his notebook, filled with carefully organized notes along with a list of questions and observations. The principal greeted him politely, though he could sense some tension in the office. "Thank you for coming in," the principal said. "I understand you have some concerns about the bus driver." "Yes," the father replied calmly. "This isn't just a concern about one incident. There have been multiple reports of unsafe driving and harsh treatment of the children. My daughter has experienced fear on the bus, and other parents have shared similar experiences. I'm here because I want to ensure the children are safe and that this situation is corrected immediately." He laid out the facts clearly, without emotion clouding his words. He explained the incidents in detail. The times the bus turned too sharply, the children being ignored when they tried to get attention, and the verbal harshness that made them feel small and frightened. He read from his notes, giving specific examples from different children's accounts, including his daughter's. The principal listened carefully, taking notes and occasionally nodding. After a few moments, the head of transportation entered the room. They asked questions about timing, frequency, and locations of incidents. The father answered each question calmly, emphasizing that the most important thing was the children's safety and well-being. "I understand this is serious," the head of transportation said. "We want to ensure our drivers are following safety procedures. I will review the driver's record and speak directly with him." The father felt a small sense of relief but remained focused. He wanted action, not just promises. "I appreciate that," he said. "But we also need interim measures while this review is happening. The children shouldn't be left in unsafe conditions during this process. There should be monitoring or, if necessary, a substitute driver." The principal agreed to arrange temporary supervision on the bus and to consider assigning a substitute driver if needed. They also agreed to speak with the children in a safe environment, allowing them to express any concerns without fear of retaliation. After the meeting, the father felt a mix of exhaustion and cautious optimism. He had made his case clearly, and the school had promised to act. But he knew that words alone would not guarantee safety. He would need to follow up, remain vigilant, and continue to support his daughter through the process. That afternoon, when his daughter returned from school, she seemed a little lighter. She climbed onto the couch and began drawing a small smile on her face. "Did you have a good day?" he asked gently, sitting beside her. She hesitated, then nodded. "It was okay," she said softly. "The driver wasn't as loud today." "That's a good start," he said. "Remember, you're very brave for telling me everything, and tomorrow we'll make sure it's even better." Over the next few days, he continued to observe and gather information. He spoke discreetly with other parents who shared updates about their children's experiences. Many noticed improvements, small but meaningful, such as the bus being driven more carefully or children being spoken to with more patience. Yet there were still moments of concern, and he recorded them carefully. One morning, he noticed a child on the bus who appeared nervous, clutching the seat in front of them. He made a note of it and later spoke to the parent, learning that the child had experienced several incidents of fear on the bus. Each new story reinforced his determination. It was not enough to solve the problem for his daughter alone. All children needed to feel safe. He also spent time with his daughter, helping her express her feelings about the bus rides. They talked about strategies to stay calm, ways to speak up safely, and how to recognize when an adult needed to intervene. She practiced small phrases she could use if she felt uncomfortable, gaining confidence in her ability to assert herself. Through these moments, their bond grew stronger. She trusted him completely, knowing he would act without hesitation. And he in turn admired her courage, her willingness to speak out despite fear. It reminded him why he could not give up, why he had to see this through. One evening, he received a call from the school. The principal reported that the bus driver had been spoken to and reminded of safety procedures. But the school had also decided to monitor the bus more closely. Cameras would be installed temporarily, and an assistant would ride the bus during peak hours to ensure children's safety. He felt a small victory, but also knew it was only a first step. He thanked the principal and emphasized the importance of ongoing vigilance. Safety was not a one-time fix. It required consistent attention. That night, he sat with his daughter at the kitchen table, reviewing what had happened. "See, things are starting to get better," he said. "The school is taking steps and they are listening. But we still need to watch closely." She nodded seriously, her small face determined. "I want to tell you everything if something happens again," she said. "That's perfect," he said. "I want you to tell me. You're brave and your voice matters. Never forget that." As the days passed, the father continued his careful observation. He would walk past the bus stop occasionally, watch the bus arrive, and talk to other parents about any incidents. Slowly, the children's anxiety seemed to lessen, though he knew he had to remain cautious. Then one afternoon, the little girl came home with a big smile. "Dad, today was really good," she said. "The bus driver didn't yell at anyone, and he stopped at the corner like he was supposed to. Tommy said it was the best ride ever." Her father felt a wave of relief and pride. Change was happening, and it was because he had listened, observed, and acted. But he knew this was not the end. Real change required persistence, follow-up, and accountability. He spent that evening preparing notes for the next meeting with the school, planning to review progress and ensure the changes were permanent. He also encouraged his daughter to share her experiences openly, reminding her that her words had power and that she was helping make the bus safe for everyone. Through it all, he maintained a careful balance, protecting his daughter, advocating for safety, and keeping communication open with the school. His determination never wavered, even when progress seemed slow. Every small improvement mattered. By the end of the week, he noticed more children riding the bus with smiles instead of nervous glances. Parents were more engaged, checking in and supporting each other. And his daughter, though still cautious, had begun to regain her confidence, her small voice carrying the courage to speak out whenever something felt wrong. That night, as he sat quietly in the living room, he reflected on the journey so far. The problem had been bigger than he first realized, affecting more children than just his daughter. But through careful observation, steady action, and a commitment to safety, he had begun to make a real difference. He looked at the notebook on the table, filled with notes, reports, and observations, and felt a sense of quiet accomplishment. But he also reminded himself that vigilance was key. The changes needed to be permanent, and he would continue to monitor, support, and advocate. For the little girl, the days ahead felt brighter. She could ride the bus without fear, speak up when needed, and feel the reassurance that someone cared deeply about her safety. And for her father, each smile, each moment of courage, and each sign of improvement reinforced why he had acted immediately and why he would continue to act. No matter what challenges remained, the journey was far from over, but the first decisive steps had been taken, and the father knew that together, he and his daughter could face whatever came next. The next morning, the little girl was unusually quiet as she got ready for school. Her backpack was ready, her shoes tied, but her movements were slower, more deliberate. She had a sense of anticipation, even excitement mixed with lingering worry. She knew her father was taking action, but she also understood that real change did not happen overnight. Her father noticed the way she lingered at the door, glancing at the street as if hoping the bus would suddenly be different today. He crouched to her level and smiled softly. "Today we're going to make things even better. Are you ready?" She nodded, gripping his hand tightly as they walked together. For the first time in weeks, she felt a small sense of confidence, knowing that he was fully involved and that her voice had been heard. At the bus stop, they waited. The bus arrived, its engine rumbling softly. She climbed aboard slowly, pausing at the top of the steps to take a deep breath. Her father gave her hand a gentle squeeze. "I'm proud of you," he said. "You're brave and you're helping everyone." She smiled faintly and found her seat. Her father watched as she settled in, then walked back home, already planning the next steps. Today was important. It was not just about observation anymore. It was about confrontation and accountability. After dropping her off, he drove to the school. The principal had arranged a meeting with the bus driver, and he had been invited to attend. The father carried his notebook, filled with detailed observations, parent reports, and his daughter's account. He knew this meeting would be difficult, but it was necessary. The office was quiet when he arrived. The principal greeted him politely but with a cautious expression. "Thank you for coming," the principal said. "The bus driver is here as well. We want to resolve this safely and professionally." The bus driver entered, his expression neutral but tense. He nodded briefly at the father, who returned the nod but did not speak yet. The father knew that remaining calm was critical. He could not let anger take over. This meeting was about safety, accountability, and solutions. The principal began the conversation. "We've called this meeting because concerns have been raised about your conduct on the bus. We want to understand your perspective and also hear the reports from parents and students." The driver shifted in his seat. "I've been driving this route for years," he said. "I follow the rules. Sometimes kids are noisy and I have to maintain order. That's all." The father leaned forward slightly, speaking in a firm but calm voice. "This isn't about discipline. It's about safety and respect. Children have reported feeling unsafe, frightened, and humiliated. My daughter and several other children have shared specific incidents where your actions caused fear. That is not acceptable." The driver's expression hardened, but the father continued. He presented his notebook, reading the incidents clearly. Times when the bus turned sharply, children sliding in their seats, shouting, and moments when children asked for help but were ignored. He emphasized that these were consistent behaviors, not one-time accidents. The principal listened carefully, occasionally asking for clarification. "We need to ensure all students feel safe. Can you respond to these specific incidents?" The driver hesitated, then muttered, "I didn't mean to scare anyone. I was just trying to keep the bus under control." "That is not enough," the father said. "The children's safety comes first. You have a responsibility to drive carefully, to speak respectfully, and to ensure that no child feels frightened. These are not optional. These are your duties as a driver." The room was tense, but the father remained calm, letting his words carry weight without raising his voice. He knew that maintaining composure gave him authority and credibility. He also wanted to ensure that the focus stayed on the children, not on anger or blame. The principal intervened. "We are taking these reports seriously. We will implement temporary measures immediately. An assistant will ride the bus and cameras will be monitored to ensure compliance. Depending on the results, further action will be taken." The father nodded, satisfied that immediate safety measures were being put in place. But he knew the driver needed to understand the seriousness of the situation. "I also want to make it clear," he said, "that repeated incidents cannot continue. If children are still scared after these measures, further disciplinary action will follow, up to and including reassignment or removal from this route. Safety is non-negotiable." The driver's jaw tightened and he muttered under his breath, but the father remained composed. The important thing was that the children's safety was prioritized and the accountability was clear. The principal then asked the father to summarize the next steps. He did so clearly: monitoring, immediate reports from the assistant on board, follow-up meetings, and ongoing communication with parents. He emphasized that the children's feedback would be taken seriously and that no child should feel silenced or afraid. After the meeting, the father felt a quiet sense of relief. The confrontation had been tense, but it was necessary. The driver had been made aware of the severity of his actions, and the school had committed to ongoing oversight. It was not the end of the process, but it was a critical step toward change. When he returned home, his daughter greeted him at the door with a hopeful smile. "How did it go?" she asked softly. "Good," he said, kneeling to her level. "I made sure the driver understands that children must feel safe and respected on the bus. The school is taking steps to watch the bus carefully, and they will follow up on everything." "You've helped make this happen." Her eyes brightened and she hugged him tightly. "Really? We did it?" "Yes," he said. "We did it together. Your courage made a difference, and it will continue to make a difference for all the kids." Over the next few days, the father continued to monitor the situation. The assistant was present on the bus, observing carefully and reporting back any concerns. Cameras were installed temporarily, providing additional oversight. Parents were informed of the steps being taken, and many expressed gratitude and relief.